Hey, what's up? This is Nick with Rider Magazine, and today we're out here in beautiful Santa Barbara, California, and we just got done riding the all-new 2021 Aprilia RS 660. Now, if you guys have been keeping up with the sport bike segment, you'll know that this is one of the most highly anticipated models of the coming year, mainly because it's just something new to the middleweight segment. Now, instead of going the traditional four-cylinder or inline four-cylinder 600 Super Sport route for their middleweight offering to complement the legendary RS V4 Superbike, Aprilia has gone with something that's actually much more streetable, much more approachable for both the street and the track. And Aprilia has made it really clear that they're emphasizing street use because, let's be honest, most sport bikes, although they may go to the track occasionally, some guys may do some club racing, the fact is you're going to be spending a lot of time on the street with your motorcycle. So why not make something that actually works on the street and of course on the racetrack when you get that urge. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the star of the show, which of course is that 659cc parallel twin engine. Now, the tagline for this motor is that really it's an RS V4 or V4 engine with the rear brakes lopped off. And while that's the tagline that we can use as a reference point, and this engine does take a lot of influence from the RS V4's power plant, it is its own thing entirely. So new cases, completely new design. It has a single crankshaft with a single balancer on it as well, or single counterbalancer, I should say. But importantly, Aprilia focused on making it really svelte. They wanted it to be a very narrow motor, very short motor, to make this bike just overall a very svelte, tight, sporty package. And to me, that's the standout feature of this bike and where we jump off from everything else when we talk about this motorcycle. Now, when we talk about power, we're going to be looking at a claimed 100 horsepower and about 50 foot-pounds of torque. And for me, that's right in the sweet spot of power, because you're talking about a motorcycle with a claimed weight of 403 pounds, and that power to weight ratio, that's something that I really want to hone in on. This bike feels light, and because of its lightweight power, you can just get into that torque curve, pull up all through the mid-range, and really use the power that you have on hand. And again, it doesn't become something that's overwhelming, not unlike where super bikes with their immense power, those can be a handful even for a very experienced rider. Whereas this is something that intermediate riders and advanced riders can have a lot of fun with, and riders that have a little bit of saddle time and then they graduate to something bigger can sink their teeth into it without being immediately overwhelmed with the immense power of, say, something like Superbike. So that's very important. With this motor, you get a lot of low-end torque, which is applicable to the street rider and applicable on track for that matter. But it's starting from that 3,500 RPM range and carries through all the way through the mid-range. And as you get into the upper rev range, say, up into the high nines, does feel like it peters off in power just a hair. But overall, I think it makes great power, and it's something that you can actually sink your teeth into and use, which is really important. Now, going back to the whole svelte nature of this bike, it has a 32-inch or 32.3-inch seat height, I should say, and it also comes with a nice plush seat. That's not something that you typically see on super sports. Now, importantly, the peg width is incredibly close. This is actually one of the most narrow motorcycles I've ridden to date, and you can tell that just by putting your feet on the pegs and the way your heels sit into the frame and interact with everything. It's a very narrow motorcycle, which again is important because despite the fact that a 32.3 or a 32.3-inch seat height is a little bit on the high side, I'm able to get my feet on the ground confidently, which means people with a shorter inseam, I stand at 5 foot 10 inches, 32-inch inseam, will be able to reach the ground and be totally comfortable. And that's something that's incredibly important. So when we talk about ergonomics, that's a very important aspect of this motorcycle because Aprilia didn't want to go for a true blue 600 Super Sport riding position or a Superbike riding position. What they wanted to go for is something in between a Kawasaki Ninja 650 and a Yamaha YZF R6. So it is sporty and it has sort of faux clip-on risers, but it's not as upright or casual as, say, a Ninja 650. In that sense, in the canyons, it's really good. You can just push the bike around, muscle it around, have a lot of fun with it. And when you get back on the streets and you're just doing your general commuting, it's not untenable. It's not uncomfortable. And because you have that nice cushy seat, you have those riser bars, you're propped up. Now, the other thing that they really focused on with the development of this bike is the wind protection. You know, it's a fully fared motorcycle, and of course, no sport bike would be a 2020 or 2021 model without some aerodynamic elements added into it, a la MotoGP and World Superbike. But these aerodynamic things aren't really there for, you know, creating downforce in the way that a superbike would, because it's not going to achieve the same speeds on a regular basis, and quite frankly, it can't go 150 miles an hour. So what all of these aero design features actually do is pull away hot air from the rider. And during our ride, which we were up in Ojai, California, it gets pretty toasty up in that area. I think the plastics did a really good job of drawing that hot air away from the rider and just making it comfortable. As well as this Super Sport windscreen, it did a pretty good job of protecting me overall. You know, I didn't get that straight wind blast to the face, and it just does a good job. You can also tuck behind it, and that's super important when you're actually hitting high speeds on the racetrack. You know, in terms of ergonomics, I do think that they've sort of struck the Goldilocks moment there, because it's in between, again, something like a casual upright bike and something very sporty. So if you're looking for a sport bike and you're actually going to ride it on the street more often than the track, something like this is probably more up your alley, and you get a little bit more wind protection than you would versus a naked bike. Now, going back to the overall motorcycle, what makes this bike special is the fact that it has such advanced electronics. No other motorcycle in the middleweight class, when we talk about the SV650, the Ninja 650, the FZ07, none of those bikes have electronics that are as sophisticated as this. So it has IMU supported traction control, cornering ABS, multiple ride modes, so on and so forth, and they're all derived from Aprilia's RS V4. Of course, all of that stuff is adjustable. You have 3 ride modes in the standard road setting. So you have commute, dynamic, which are preset riding modes. And then you also have an individual mode where you can just adjust any variable as you'd like, disable traction control, disable wheelie control, do whatever you want. You can also alter throttle response. And the one thing that actually makes this electronics package a little bit more advanced than the RS-V4 is that you can individually adjust engine braking. So if you want a little bit more engine braking when you're riding on the street, and say when you go to a racetrack you want to tone down that engine braking so you can actually just rely on your brake pressure, that's something that you can do and you can adjust. Now, for the racetrack, there are separate ride modes, and they are called Challenge, which is a preset non-adjustable ride mode, and Time Attack, which is fully adjustable again. So overall, you get 5 riding modes to play with, and that's pretty cool. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some other aspects of the bike, which is the handling. Now, a really cool aspect of this bike is it uses the engine as a stressed member for the twin spar frame, and that's part of the reason why it keeps its weight so low. It's because it doesn't have any extra frame mass to deal with. The engine is part of the chassis because the swing arm directly connects to the engine, and this is a design feature that we've seen in many bikes in probably the past 10 or 11 years, especially from Italian brands. It handles very reminiscent of an RS-V4 and a Tuono. It has a lot of those very planted characteristics where the front end feels quite good, especially when you're trail braking and you get a lot of mechanical grip from the chassis. It's very confidence inspiring in that way, and that's something that I've really enjoyed about this bike. Now, helping that cause is the 41 millimeter Kayaba forks up front, and you're adjustable for preload and rebound, and then in the rear you have a Kayaba shock, which again, rebound and preload adjustment only. Overall, I think the damping rates are good for the street, and someone of my weight, I think I would want a little bit more compression damping, a little bit more rebound damping. If you hit some of the really big compression bumps, you can unsettle the chassis, but not to an extreme way in the way that you would with when you talk about something like the Ninja 650 or the SV650, where its suspension components are a good step, I should say, below the spec of this. Now, I would prefer a little bit more damping overall in both circuits on the rebound and compression, but I think they do a fairly good job as we have it. And it's important to remember that, again, Aprilia positioned this as a street bike first, so it does not have that super stiff racetrack ready suspension that the RS-V4 would. So you compromise a little bit in terms of comfort, which this bike does pretty well, and you're going to sacrifice a little bit in pure sporting prowess, which doesn't really matter on the street, if we're being blunt. Now, a couple other little things I want to touch on is going back to the engine. One of the things that I did notice about this, and if we talk about just the single counterbalancer that they have in the motor, which again goes back to keeping things very light, when you get above probably 8,000 RPM, you will feel a little bit of buzziness. And I noticed that primarily through the foot pegs. It stood out to me on deceleration when you're really getting up there on the revs. And at that point, you're probably focusing on trying to ride the bike and, you know, just doing your sporty thing. But that's one of the more kind of negative aspects that I did notice about the bike. So one of the final things that I do want to touch on before we start wrapping this up is, of course, the brakes. Now, they're Brembo branded, and from my eyes and my research, they look like Brembo M3 S58s or S48s. I can't remember the proper nomenclature for that. So it's a couple generations back from the M432, the M50, and the Stylema. Overall, you're getting really good braking feel, good stopping power, of course, and it is a cut above stuff like the SV650, FC07, and so on and so forth. So that more affordable Japanese middleweight, the hardware that you're getting here is definitely a good step above that. So you get good braking power, good feel, and you also get adjustable levers, or lever, I should say, on the braking side. Now, overall, this bike has been really impressive to me. I can't wait to get it out for a track day and see what it can do. And I think for the money, you're going to be paying $11,299. You're getting a lot of bike. And the reality is, this is about as much motorcycle as most sport riders really need. It has all the power that a street rider could ask for without going over the top. And on the racetrack, I think its nimble nature, the fact that it's super planted, you can just chuck it around and really, really wrangle it, is it's going to please a lot of people. So this is something that I've been impressed with. You know, there are a couple little refinement things. I wish that the buzziness wasn't there, and that's about it. But overall, it's a bike that I've been excited with for a long time, and yeah, can't wait to ride some more. So if you guys have any more questions, go ahead and visit ridermagazine.com. And the last thing I want to do is remind you guys to be safe out there. Take care.